Have you ever just stopped and looked at the world around you and wondered how it all just works? You know, from the tiniest little pond to a huge forest, everything seems connected in this incredibly complex, delicate dance. So let's dive in and see if we can unpack the beautiful harmony of the natural world.
Our journey today actually starts right here, in parts of India where something unusual is happening. Huge herds of elephants are leaving the forest they've lived in for generations. They're wandering onto farms into villages, looking for food like bananas and sugarcane. And why? Well, because their own homes are shrinking and their water holes are drying up. Now, this isn't just some random event. No, it's a huge signpost pointing to a much bigger story about connection, balance, and what happens when that balance is disturbed.
And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? Why on earth would a massive, intelligent animal that belongs in a forest choose to risk everything by entering a human farm? To get to the bottom of this, we need to go back to basics. We need to understand the fundamental rules of how nature organizes itself.
And that organization, that whole system, it all starts with the most basic concept for any living thing. It's address. We call it a habitat. And trust me, understanding this is the foundation for everything else we're about to explore.
So, what is a habitat? It's really simple. It's just the natural home or environment of an organism. A pond, for example, has all the right stuff for fish and frogs to thrive. A forest, on the other hand, is the perfect setup for animals like deer and foxes. Each one is a unique little world, offering the specific resources and conditions needed for life to flourish.
Now, any habitat you can think of can be broken down into two key parts. First, you've got the biotic components. That's a fancy word for all the living things, the plants, the animals, even the tiny microorganisms you can't see. And then you have the abiotic components, the non-living stuff. Think water, soil, sunlight, and temperature. It's the constant interaction between the living and the non-living that truly brings a habitat to life.
Okay, so we've got the building blocks down. We have the address. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Let's see how life gets organized within that habitat, from a single individual all the way up to a complex, bustling neighborhood.
So the first level up is what we call a population. And this is pretty straightforward, right? It's just a group of the same species living together in the same area. So think back to that pond we saw. All the fish of one type swimming around in there, that's a population.
Okay, now for the next level. Let's take all the different populations in that pond, not just the fish, but also the frogs, the dragonflies, the water lilies, all of it, and put them all together. Now, you've got a community. And the magic word here is interaction. A community isn't just a bunch of things living in the same place, it's about how they all depend on one another.
But just how deep do these interactions go? This is where things get really interesting. Some researchers did this incredible experiment. They set up two identical ponds, right next to each other. The only difference? Pond A had fish in it, and Pond B had absolutely none. And what they found reveals a hidden connection that, I promise you, you would never ever expect.
Get ready for this, because this is a perfect example of a ripple effect. Just follow the logic. So, the fish in Pond A, they ate the dragonfly larvae living in the water. Okay, that makes sense. But with fewer larvae, that meant fewer adult dragonflies could survive and fly around. Now here's the twist. Adult dragonflies ate bees, so fewer dragonflies meant that more bees survived. And with more bees buzzing around, they were able to pollinate more of the plants growing on the shore. More pollination meant those plants produced more seeds. It's unbelievable, right? The fish in the pond were actually helping the plants on the land to reproduce.
This amazing chain reaction, this whole intricate dance, is all powered by one fundamental thing: the flow of energy. The simple, almost primal question of who eats whom is literally the engine that drives every single ecosystem on this planet.
The simplest way for us to picture this energy transfer is with something we call a food chain. You've probably seen these before. It's just a straight line, a simple sequence that shows how energy moves from one living thing to the next.
Let's just walk through a classic example. You start with the sun's energy, which is captured by the grass. We call the grass a producer. Then along comes a rabbit, a herbivore, and it eats the grass, taking in that energy. And then a fox, a carnivore, eats the rabbit, and the energy moves up one more time. It's a simple, linear flow of energy. Easy peasy.
But you know what I'm going to say, right? Nature is rarely that simple. It's never just a straight line. A fox doesn't only eat rabbits, and rabbits aren't only eaten by foxes. The truth is, all of these simple little chains are interconnected, tangled together, in what is actually a very complex and sometimes messy food web. So,
Knowing all this, knowing about all these delicate connections and these complex webs, what do you think happens when we humans come along and just pull on one of those threads? What happens when that beautiful balance breaks?
Well, let me tell you a cautionary tale. It's the story of the Indian bullfrog. Back in the 1980s, there was a huge international market for frog legs, and it was really profitable. So millions and millions of these bullfrogs were harvested from the wild and exported. On the surface, it probably just seemed like a good business opportunity. But what no one realized was that they were pulling on a very, very important thread in the web.
And the consequences? They were a complete disaster. With the frog population crashing, there were far fewer predators to eat insects, so the population of agricultural pests just exploded. To save their crops, farmers had to use way more chemical pesticides. These chemicals then seeped into the ground, damaging the soil and polluting the water. It got so bad that the government eventually had to step in and ban the export of frog legs altogether. It is a powerful, powerful lesson in how removing just one piece can make the entire system start to fall apart.
And this really gets to the heart of it. This quote from our source material says it perfectly. An ecosystem's balance isn't fixed. It's not like a statue set in stone. It's dynamic. Think of it like a tightrope walker, constantly making tiny adjustments to stay upright and stable. That's nature.
And here's the thing, a balanced ecosystem doesn't just sustain itself, it sustains us. Look at the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest. This incredible place acts as a natural shield for the coast, slowing down powerful storms. It also breathes in and stores massive amounts of carbon dioxide. These are essential services that healthy ecosystems provide for free, services we often completely take for granted.
Which brings us back to where we started and leaves us with one last vital question. We absolutely depend on this intricate harmony of nature for our own survival. So looking at this delicate, dynamic balance, what is our responsibility to protect it in return? Because when that balance is broken, whether it's by taking too many frogs from a field or shrinking a forest, the consequences, the ripples, they always spread. Eventually, they can send elephants walking off their ancient paths and right into our modern world.